Thank you very much. Mr. Hannan, 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I met a fascinating MP from Uganda last month, and I said to her, you know, what's the effect of all the EU aid that you get? Does it help? And she said, it's not useless. It's actively harmful. And she then gave me some statistics comparing countries in receipt of overseas aid and countries not, and she showed the differential growth rates. The ones that don't receive aid do better, and the same was true of debt remission. The countries that didn't have debt remission tended not to be as indebted as the ones that had benefited and immediately indebted themselves again. So I said, well, in that case, what can we do for you? And she said, well, if you want to give aid, please don't give it to governments. Just announce that there will be a project, say, to build highways, take tenders from local companies, and then you will leave behind at the end not only the highway, but a company that knows how to gain a contract honestly rather than through bribery. But she said if you really want to help, the way you can do it most effectively wouldn't cost you a penny. It's to withdraw your tariffs against our exports, above all our agrarian exports. So here's a way that we could raise the quality of living for European consumers at the same time as helping some of the poorest people in the world, simply by scrapping the common agricultural policy. Mr. President, what's the single best thing that we could do to help poor people in developing countries? It's plainly not aid. We've tried that option, and the countries which have received the largest handouts have been the slowest in their economic and democratic development. It's not debt remission either. We do that, and the countries that have been the biggest beneficiaries are the quickest to become re-indebted. The single best thing we could do is to abolish the common agricultural policy, which penalises them twice over. First, by closing European markets to what is overwhelmingly their best export product, and secondly, by dumping our surpluses uncompetitively on third world markets. And here's the best bit. Scrapping the common agricultural policy wouldn't cost us a penny. On the contrary, it would make us better off as taxpayers, because we wouldn't be subsidising the production of food for which there's no market, and it would make us better off as consumers, because we wouldn't be paying artificially inflated food bills. In other words, the best way to help poor people in poor countries has the delicious bonus that we'd be helping poor people in Europe. And rather than do that, we are standing up for the vested interests of the EU machine. Shame on us. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Reform of the common agricultural policy has been the goal of every successive British government, not only since we joined, but even before we joined. It was something that Harold Macmillan's government used to aspire to when we made our first application. And yet, by any measure, there has been no significant reform. In absolute terms and in the way in which it works, the common agricultural policy remains run along the essentially etatiste or socialist lines in which it was conceived in 1960. When Tony Blair was Prime Minister, he gave away a large chunk of the British rebate in return for CAP reform. The rebate was accepted and no CAP reform was forthcoming. Incidentally, when we are now talking about giving away the rest of our rebate, it is worth remembering how grateful all the other countries were on the last occasion that we gave away the rebate. Oddly, I can't remember it myself, but maybe you can help me with that, colleagues. The fact is, we don't have it in our power fundamentally to change the basis on which the EU was set up. The only thing which we do have it in our power to decide is whether we want to be part of it. And I have every confidence in the good sense and perception of my countrymen to make the right decision when the time comes.